Divorce with huge breakup fees, beautiful CEO seeking reconciliation introduction. www.zhaozuiyuan.com. Zhang Sui felt a bit speechless. He actually wore a book and traveled to a friend's book, becoming a male villain who was abandoned by the male lead. At this moment, he is facing a huge breakup fee of 1 billion yuan that the beautiful CEO is throwing at him. Seeing the disdainful and disgusted expression of the beautiful CEO, Zhang Sui did not give her any chance to hesitate and answered with a tearful expression on her face. https://www.zhaozuiyuan.com. Chapter 1. Wearing books, opening with huge breakup fees. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Zhang Sui, agree to divorce. I am already full of sincerity. A breakup fee of 1 billion yuan is enough to justify your support for me back then. If you're still unsatisfied and persistent, I guarantee you'll regret it. A twisted melon is not sweet. Zhang Sui stared blankly at the icy beauty in front of him. At this moment, Fang Zheng looked at him with an undisguised look of disdain and disgust. That looks like looking at some kind of poison. What is the situation? Zhang Sui looked around in confusion. Where are the luxurious decorations around here? I am clearly renting a room, holding my phone and chatting with my friends about a soon-to-be-concluded urban harem-slap novel. Why is it here? At this moment, a vast memory flooded into my mind. The powerful flow of information made Zhang Sui couldn't help but moan. Severe pain. However, in the eyes of the beautiful woman in front of her, the disgust in her eyes grew even stronger, and she sneered, Zhang Sui, is that interesting? Do you think you're pretending to have a headache now, and I'll sympathize with you? We have never had any emotions. Don't say you're just a headache, even if you really die in front of me, I won't have any emotional fluctuations. Zhang Sui ignored the beautiful woman's incessant and cold words. His face was filled with a look of shock. The powerful information flow has been received. He only then understood. He actually traveled through time. But it's not crossing into a parallel world, it's crossing into a book. Time travel to the urban harem slapstick novel that my friend is about to finish. Moreover, he is not a protagonist through time travel. On the contrary, he crossed over to a male villain. This male villain, also known as Zhang Sui, used to be a wealthy second-generation playboy and the second son of the Zhang family, who advocated you, a well-known figure in Yanjing. Due to his abnormal behavior as a playboy, the whole family was extremely disgusted, and as a result, he lost his qualification to inherit the Zhang family early on. And the beautiful woman in front of her, named Lingqi, is undoubtedly one of the female protagonists in the novel, Friend. Lingqi and Zhang Sui in this book were once college classmates. Lingqi is the flower of the university, born in poverty, but clean and self-centered, very ambitious. Unfortunately, in her sophomore year, her younger sister suffered from leukemia and needed huge medical expenses to be treated. After learning about the situation, the male antagonist Zhang Sui took the initiative to contact Lingqi and expressed his willingness to bear the huge medical expenses. The condition is that Lingqi becomes his wife. Lingqi agreed and went to collect his marriage certificate on the same day. In the following 3 years of college and 2 years after graduation, Lingqi followed the agreement and became the wife of the male antagonist Zhang Sui. However, Lingqi did not sacrifice her body. On the contrary, she works harder to read and start a business. During this period, the male antagonist Zhang Sui loved Lingqi to the bone. Although Lingqi often ignores him, let alone fulfill his wife's obligations, the male antagonist Zhang Sui has had countless tantrums. However, the male antagonist Zhang Sui never harmed Lingqi in the end. But Lingqi still doesn't like him, and even hates him. Finally, 2 years after graduating from university, Lingqi's entrepreneurial company officially entered a stage of rapid development. Then, the current situation is that Lingqi can no longer accept her relationship with the male antagonist Zhang Sui, and has handed over a breakup fee of 1 billion yuan, as well as a divorce agreement. However, in a friend's novel, the male antagonist Zhang Sui not only did not accept divorce, but also angrily used force against Lingqi. As he was about to succeed, he was met by the passing male Li Yifan. Yifan is a master who goes down the mountain. He has an extremely powerful grandfather who is holding the 7 marriage contracts that his grandfather has made for him, searching for the 7 female leads. And Lingqi is one of them. When Yifan saw the behavior of the antagonist Zhang Sui, he knocked him unconscious and saved Lingqi, which greatly increased Lingqi's liking for him. Afterwards, Lingqi learned that she had been engaged to Yifan since childhood, and immediately fell in love with the male protagonist Yifan. Even if later she found out that Yifan was promiscuous and had many lovers, Lingqi remained unwavering. And the antagonist Zhang Sui, on the next entanglement with Lingqi, was deposed by Yifan as a man's capital, and along with the Zhang family, was uprooted by Yifan. In the end, the antagonist Zhang Sui was thrown into the open sea by Yifan to feed the sharks. At this moment, Zhang Sui lifted his head and looked at Lingqi, one of the female leads. A drop of sweat rolled down his forehead. Beauty is beauty. However, for one thing, he doesn't like cold and aloof women. He prefers lively, cute, and passionate women. Secondly, as someone who has read the novel Friend, he is well aware of the power and incredible fortune of the male lead Yifan. Whoever opposes the male protagonist Yifan's death is extremely tragic. Not only will they be slapped in various ways, but they will also end up causing their families to perish. Of course, none of Yifan's licking dogs and little brothers had a good ending, and they all became tools for Yifan to pretend to force and fight, and were killed by various villains. Therefore, the only way to live safely is to stay away from the male protagonist, from anyone and anything related to him. Now, Lingqi in front of her is also one of the female leads. If you want to survive, you can think of it with your toes. Not to mention, I am not the male antagonist Zhang Sui in this novel, and I have no feelings for Lingqi. However, although Zhang Sui made a clear decision, he did not dare to show it too clearly. If there are any unforeseen circumstances, the consequences would be unimaginable. Facing Lingqi's gloomy and watery pretty face, Zhang Sui took the check with difficulty and glanced at it. His heart has stopped beating. It is indeed 1 billion. This Lingqi is bold enough. As an ordinary social animal before reading, this 1 billion is simply astronomical. Don't say it's a lifetime, it's a few lifetimes without earning anything. If you still don't accept this, it's like your brain is sick. Of course, this body is also a wealthy second generation. However, due to his playboy nature, this body had already strained its relationship with the Zhang family. Nowadays, the Zhang family has nothing to do with him except for giving him pocket money of over 100,000 yuan per month. These tens of thousands of pocket money, compared to 1 billion, naturally cannot be compared. Zhang Suiqiang suppressed his excited heart, trembling hands, and tears squeezed out of his eyes. As he put the check in his pocket, he trembled as he picked up the divorce agreement and quickly signed his own name. He choked up on Lingqi and said, "Can't we not divorce?" After speaking, put the divorce agreement into Lingqi's hands. Lingqi watched as Zhang Sui quickly signed his name and quickly pushed the divorce agreement into his own hands, feeling slightly lost. Although the other party seems to be very heartbroken, why is this action so strange and out of place? However, Lingqi quickly regained his senses. Mind him. As long as he signs the divorce agreement and everyone gets divorced, his thoughts have nothing to do with him. Just a playboy. Although I have helped myself before, it is impossible to distract myself from him. Without him, I can be carefree and devote myself wholeheartedly to my career. Chapter 2. Rich Second Generation Qiyun. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Lingqi held the divorce agreement and quickly left. Zhang Sui watched Lingqi disappear from sight with a look of Wei Chu Baba and reluctant to part, and couldn't help but burst out laughing. 1 billion. A small goal. According to memory, the purchasing power of money in this world of books is comparable to that of money before travel. 1 billion is enough to squander a lifetime. With so much money, no Zhang family or struggle is needed anymore. Just lie flat. Of course, you can't really lie flat completely. We still need to cultivate some interests and hobbies. However, not now. Before traveling, as an ordinary social animal, I only earned 10,000 yuan per month and lived frugally. Since the end of my previous relationship, I have never had a girlfriend. Nowadays, I must go to the club to play. Play back everything you haven't played before. Immediately. Immediately. Zhang Sui walked out of the room directly. This is a 3-bedroom, 1 living room, and 2-bathroom furnished house located in the center of Wuchang City. Originally, it was Zhang Sui who begged the Zhang family for money and bought it in full. The purpose of buying it is also very simple, it is to please Lingqi. However, since buying it, only the villain Zhang Sui has lived here, and Lingqi has hardly ever come. According to memory, the total number of visits is less than 5. Moreover, they never stay long each time. Lingqi has no emotional attachment to the antagonist Zhang Sui. Although the two got married, they are no different from strangers. Zhang Sui cut off. This villain Zhang Sui has some difficulty using his brain. No wonder, after all, the friend who wrote this book is a woman. Many of women's brain circuits are very unique. Even if they write male-dominated urban harem novels, the men under their keyboards are mostly licking dogs. For example, the antagonist Zhang Sui. As a wealthy second generation, for the sake of a cold and aloof goddess Lingqi, I have turned myself into such a situation. But now, it is absolutely impossible to travel by oneself. The licking dog licked until it had nothing left. As a wealthy second generation, even if my relationship with the Zhang family gets strained, I still have tens of thousands of pocket money every month, which is a height that many ordinary people cannot reach in their lifetime. The vast majority of women will easily succumb to the weight of this money. Why do we have to catch a cold and aloof woman like Lingqi to lick? Not to mention, now I still have 1 billion. Zhang Sui hummed a tune, held the key, left the door, and was about to take the elevator down. In no time, I saw the elevator open. A young woman wearing a purple long dress with chestnut long hair draped over her shoulders appeared. A woman in her 20s and 60s has fair skin like milk, which can be easily broken by a blow. A surge of memory surged out. Lu Qiyun. The only daughter of Lu Su, the head of the Yanjing Lu family. He was originally a childhood sweetheart with the antagonist Zhang Sui. From kindergarten to high school, the two often play together. Until college, the antagonist Zhang Sui fell in love with Lingqi at first sight. In order to prevent Lingqi from misunderstanding, the antagonist Zhang Sui almost cut off contact with other women. Among them is Lu Qiyun, a childhood sweetheart. For this reason, Lu Qiyun had been cursing the villain Zhang Sui for a period of time. In his friend's novel, Lu Qiyun has actually always liked the antagonist Zhang Sui. Until the middle of the novel, the villain Zhang Sui was fed a shark by the male protagonist Yi Fan in the open sea, and Lu Qiyun even sought revenge for the villain Zhang Sui. Unfortunately, not only did he not succeed in seeking revenge, but his family was ruined by the male Li Ji Fan. In the end, Lu Qiyun wandered the streets. The male protagonist Yi Fan still didn't let her go, but instead had his subordinates arrange a few beggars to turn Lu Qiyun around. In despair, Lu Qiyun crashed into a flowing car and died. In my friend's novel, this passage is also very popular among readers. Some readers even find this not satisfying. At first, Zhang Sui didn't have much feeling when reading this paragraph. After all, Qiyun is just one of the villains in the novel. But now, as I travel through this novel and face Qiyun, his expression becomes somewhat strange. Qiyun clearly did not expect to meet Zhang Sui here, let alone that Zhang Sui would face him with all four eyes. However, she didn't say hello, just rolled her eyes and hugged her chest, looking elsewhere. She cursed mercilessly in her mouth, licked the dog. Zhang Sui walked into the elevator and looked at Qiyun. Qiyun felt Zhang Sui's gaze and immediately exclaimed angrily, "Look at you, MMP. Licking the dog, why don't you lick your Lingqi? Just take another look at the old lady, it's really disgusting." If you hadn't read the novel in advance and knew Qiyun's feelings towards the antagonist Zhang Sui, these vulgar words would have made Zhang Sui avoid them. But at this moment, Zhang Sui was not angry, but smiled and said, "I'm divorced, I'm not licking anymore. Do you have time? Introduce me to a high-end club, where there are high-quality women." Qiyun. Turning her head, she squinted her eyes and looked at Zhang Sui. She doesn't believe it at all. Will this licking dog be willing to divorce Lingqi, who has a paralyzed face? If he had this backbone, how could he be so clingy to others over the years? Seeing that Qiyun didn't believe it, Zhang suddenly reached out his hand and hugged her waist, kissing her on the side of the face. In the novel, Qiyun ultimately seeks revenge for the villain Zhang Sui and is even ruined by the male Lingqi fan. It is evident that the other party likes the antagonist Zhang Sui. Having such a beautiful confidant would be a waste if we don't make use of it now. And, truly worthy of being a wealthy second generation. This is for maintenance. The texture of this skin is soft and fluffy, with a bouncing sensation. It doesn't feel too good. Before traveling, it had been a long time since he separated from his ex-girlfriend that he had never been so intimate with a woman. Zhang Sui's face turned red and he gave Qiyun a thumbs up, saying, not bad, I feel very good." Qiyun stared blankly at Zhang Sui. Soon, her ears and pretty face quickly covered in a layer of blush, finally spreading to her fair and slender neck. Raising his right hand, he touched the cheek that Zhang Sui had kissed. Is this licking dog really modified? Returning to the cynical attitude before encountering Lingqi. However, soon Qiyun regained his senses and twisted Zhang Sui's ear, roaring, "What's so special about you? If you get divorced, kiss me. Have you ever agreed with me? I'm such a beautiful white rose that I've been ruined by your stinky mouth." Although the scolding was extremely unpleasant, Qiyun still had an uncontrollable smile on his face. Zhang Sui hurriedly said, "Release it, it hurts." Qiyun finally loosened his grip on Zhang Sui's ear and couldn't help but say, "What, you're really divorced? Why don't you lick her? Aren't you afraid she'll run away with other men? Think about the way she's panting under other men, don't you feel heartbroken?" Zhang Sui touched the ear twisted by Qiyun and smiled, "There are countless beautiful women in the world. How many of them are under other men? Can I feel the pain in my heart? Besides, it's okay, so I won't feel the pain anymore." Qiyun clicked twice and looked at Zhang Sui before asking, "So, are you going now?" Zhang Sui raised his eyebrows and said, "I just got divorced, and she gave me a huge sum of money. I guess I won't be able to spend it all in my life. I'm planning to go to the club and order some beautiful women to relax. Can you introduce me or go together?" Chapter 3. Crazy Night. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Upon hearing Zhang Sui's words, Qiyun punched him in the chest and laughed heartily. "I didn't expect that you, a stubborn licking dog, really saw through. Let's go, I'll take you to the club. I'll give you all the pretty women you want today. I'll treat you. I originally wanted to go to work, but today, I'm willing to sacrifice my life to accompany the gentleman." Zhang Sui licked the corner of his mouth. What a great thing to have a wealthy second-generation beauty confidant. He really couldn't understand why the antagonist Zhang Sui's mind was like being squeezed by a door, and he had to lick the female lead Lingqi. Without saying anything else, just talk about appearance. Will Lu Qiyun be inferior to Lingqi? Not to mention her personality, Lingqi's aloof personality seemed like someone owed her money. Faced with such a face every day, wouldn't it dampen the mood? Zhang Suichong gave Lu Qiyun a thumbs up and followed her out of the elevator, while extending both hands and saying, I want 10 today. Now that I have traveled through books, become a wealthy second-generation, and have just received such a huge breakup fee, what kind of innocence is there? What are you doing with pure love? Whoever likes it, then let them do it. He's going to play now. Let go play. The two walked out of the building shoulder to shoulder and arrived at the parking lot. Based on his memory, Zhang Sui found his own car, which turned out to be a luxurious sports car in this world of novels. Although the Zhang family in Wucheng is already desperate for him, it is impossible for him to get involved in the Zhang family's business. However, under his persistent struggle, there was still no shortage of houses or cars that he should have. Zhang Sui drove a sports car, following Lu Qiyun and galloping freely in the car. The huge roar emitted by the engine shook the other people on the street, causing them to frown and even curse loudly. Zhang Sui was not affected at all. This kind of drunken and dreamy life is indeed enjoyable. Soon, Zhang Sui followed Lu Qiyun to a luxurious club. After ordering a VIP room, Zhang Sui and Lu Qiyun directly opened several bottles of tens of thousands of alcoholic beverages. Drinking soundly, Zhang Sui still hadn't forgotten his purpose for coming this time, experienced the feeling of embracing each other. Seeing Lu Qiyun drinking happily, Zhang Sui quickly patted her shoulder and said, "Come on, what you said today, treat me. Hurry up and call 10 beautiful women over, the most beautiful woman." Lu Qiyun looked at Zhang Sui with a red face and a playful expression. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly and he said, "What's so special? Are you sure you want 10? With your physique, you really can handle it." Zhang Sui raised his eyebrows and said, "Can you just say if you can't afford it? If you can't afford it, I'll do it myself. Today, I have money and just got it from Lingqi." Lu Qiyun saw that he couldn't resist Zhang Sui's stubbornness. Thinking that he had given up on Lingqi now, he hesitated for a moment and actually called the beautiful woman over. But not 10. But 20. Zhang Sui watched 20 top-notch beauties standing in front of him, each with a playful expression, and laughed excitedly. Before crossing over, as an ordinary social animal, it was even difficult to marry an ordinary woman. Now, traveling through time, these 20 top-notch beauties are all showcasing themselves like celebrities, yet they all serve themselves. Life can be like this, what can I hope for? Having a proud night today, even going to die tomorrow is worth it. Zhang Sui walked up to these top-notch beauties, his big hands constantly lingering on them, causing a room full of coquettishness. Some top-notch beauties even collapsed into Zhang Sui's arms. Zhang Sui didn't hesitate and kissed directly. After crossing over, I now have such a wealthy second-generation identity, with a monthly allowance of tens of thousands of yuan and a breakup fee of 1 billion yuan given by my ex-wife Lingqi. What else are you packing? Play. Play happily. One of the women simply took off her clothes and sat on Zhang Sui's lap, holding Zhang Sui's head and covering her chest, constantly wriggling. Zhang Sui felt like he was about to pass out happily. Lu Qiyun sat beside Zhang Sui, quietly watching the scene. Watching the woman sitting on Zhang Sui's lap holding Zhang Sui's hand as she was about to fall below her, Lu Qiyun, who had been watching Zhang Sui play with a smile on her lips, suddenly picked up the wine glass on the table and smashed it directly onto the woman's head. Blood mixed with alcohol slid off the woman's head. A scream echoed around. The other women were frightened and screamed by Lu Qiyun's behavior. Zhang Sui was originally drunk. Combined with the woman's teasing, he felt a bit groggy. The screams around him, the woman on his thigh swaying and trembling, instantly made him much clearer. Move your head away from the woman's chest and look at Lu Qiyun. However, Lu Qiyun still maintained a smile on his face. He extended his right hand and grabbed his arm, pulling him up and saying, I had a lot of fun today. Let's go back early. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. She grabbed Zhang Sui's arm with her 5 fingers very hard, and her nails even penetrated into Zhang Sui's flesh, causing great pain. Zhang Sui thought of Lu Qiyun's feelings towards the antagonist Zhang Sui in the original novel, smiled, pushed away the woman who was still sitting on her thigh but was about to collapse, and pointed at Lu Qiyun to other frightened women, saying, her medical expenses are on her head. Don't be afraid, this is a rule of law society, and she won't kill anyone. Lu Qiyun directly dragged Zhang Sui away. Dragging Zhang Sui all the way to the parking lot of the clubhouse, he called a substitute driver and drove her car, taking her and Zhang Sui back to Zhang Sui's house. As Zhang Sui, who was already a bit drunk, was about to take out the key from his pocket, Lu Qiyun suddenly felt somewhere. Looking at Zhang Sui's shaky figure, Lu Qiyun blushed and forced a squeeze. Zhang Sui suddenly became agitated and looked at Lu Qiyun, who was holding his own key to open the door, with some confusion in his eyes. As she opened the door, Zhang Sui suddenly felt a surge of excitement and hugged Lu Qiyun from behind, quickly pulling open her skirt. Lu Qiyun was momentarily confused. However, she quickly regained her senses. Feeling her skirt quickly torn apart, Lu Qiyun bit her red lips and kicked the door of the room, closing it and forcefully breaking open Zhang Sui's hand before turning around. Zhang Sui kissed directly. Lu Qiyun's breathing was a bit rapid. At the next moment, she closed her eyes and warmly welcomed Zhang Sui while tearing at his clothes. When Zhang Sui woke up, he was completely naked and had a large fork placed on his body. In his arms, a woman who was also naked curled up, like a obedient kitten, with slender and fair fingers covering his secret area. Zhang Sui's heart suddenly stopped beating. What happened? Countless memory fragments gush out. Zhang Sui let out a secret hiss. Yes, I have already traveled through it. Traversing through a friend's novel, becoming a male villain in the early stages also known as Zhang Sui. And last night, he followed the childhood sweetheart of the male villain to the club and had a great time drinking. In my memory, there were only a few pretty girls, and he buried his head in each other's chest. Afterwards, I don't remember. The woman in that arms, Zhang Sui raised his head slightly. He let out a secret hiss. On the fair and tender skin of the other party, there are finger marks all over. Zhang Sui. Sure enough, I am a suspension wire. After crossing into the second generation of wealth, there will be an outbreak of temperament, and beasts are not as good as birds. The woman in her arms also felt Zhang Sui's movements, lifted her head, and met Zhang Sui's 4 eyes. It's Lu Qiyun. Zhang Sui. How is she? Lu Qiyun only exchanged glances with Zhang Sui for a moment, then buried his head in Zhang Sui's arms and murmured, Don't worry, we are just playing and don't need you to take responsibility. Chapter 4. Lu Qiyun vs. Lingqi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Zhang Sui lowered his head and looked at Lu Qiyun in his arms, his face somewhat embarrassed. He tried hard to recall last night. Indeed, he has no crazy memory of Lu Qiyun. Watching Lu Qiyun's snow-white body, Zhang Sui took a deep breath and felt a bit uneasy. How many years has it been since he broke up with his ex-girlfriend that he hasn't been intimate with a woman? Now, it's already up to this point anyway. Zhang Sui flipped Lu Qiyun over and, amidst Lu Qiyun's startled cries, grabbed her red lips. The two fought fiercely for nearly an hour again. Until Lu Qiyun lay on the bed like a puddle of soft mud, Zhang Sui stopped tinkering. Looking at the sweat all over his body, Zhang Sui covered Lu Qiyun with a blanket and carried his clothes to the bathroom to take a shower. I feel particularly happy today. Zhang Sui can be certain that after living for decades, he was so happy for the first time. Sure enough, it's so satisfying to travel through time and become a wealthy second-generation playboy. Especially with a breakup fee of 1 billion. Just as he was about to finish washing, he saw the bathroom glass door pushed open. Lu Qiyun hugged his shoulders and looked at him with a playful expression on his face. Zhang Sui awkwardly stopped humming a tune and said, "So what, I'm taking a shower." Lu Qiyun couldn't help but say, "You've already slept with me. Are you being poor with my mother now?" After speaking, he sat down directly on the toilet. Zhang Sui. Lu Qiyun saw Zhang Sui looking at him and angrily gouged him out, saying, "What are you looking at? Have you never seen a fairy defecate before? Why don't you get out of here? You like to smell so much." Zhang Sui frowned and quickly wrapped himself in a towel before leaving. Lu Qiyun suddenly stood up and patted his buttocks, pinching his fingers and saying, "I'm depressed, you man, your buttocks are even bigger than mine." Zhang Sui. After leaving the bathroom and toilet, Zhang Sui returned to his room, drying his body while looking at the bed. His gaze was somewhat guilty. You can see some bloodstains on the bed. Unexpectedly, this is still Lu Qiyun's first time. Drying his body, Zhang Sui changed into clothes and started playing with his phone. He is preparing to wait for Lu Qiyun to come out and explain to her that he will be responsible. However, he also felt a bit uneasy in his heart. Although in the novel, Lu Qiyun has an extraordinary love for him. But last night, I was hugging around in front of her in the clubhouse, indulging in both dandy and extravagance. But before Lu Qiyun could come out, he heard the doorbell ringing outside. Zhang Sui walked towards the door in confusion and opened it. Who would come to find themselves? According to memory, I don't have many friends. As for the people of the Zhang family, they have long been heartbroken or desperate about themselves. I definitely won't come knocking on my door. As soon as he opened the door, Zhang was stunned. Surprisingly, it's Lingqi. Lingqi is currently wearing a white professional suit, a hip-wrapped skirt and straight and slender legs. A head of black long hair, coiled behind the head in the shape of a meatball, revealing a fair and slender neck. Zhang Sui secretly gave a thumbs up. Besides being as cold as ice, it has to be said that this Lingqi is indeed very beautiful. No wonder the villain Zhang Sui licked it for so long. However, Zhang Sui didn't give Lingqi a good face this time, let alone let her in. Instead, he stood at the door and said calmly, "Is there anything else? The divorce agreement has already been signed." Lingqi met Zhang Sui's indifferent face, and Dai's eyebrows furrowed slightly. Before signing the divorce agreement yesterday, Zhang Sui had been smiling when he saw her. Her indifferent appearance now makes her feel a bit uncomfortable. However, she didn't hesitate either. Hate arises from love. He has been pestering himself for so long, and now that he has dumped him, it is normal for him to do so. But these have nothing to do with oneself. Ling Qimian said expressionlessly, "I left a set of clothes here before. Since I'm divorced, I want to take it with me." A surge of memory surged out. Half a month ago, on the birthday of the antagonist Zhang Sui, he played hard and even caused trouble in the Lingqi company, which allowed Lingqi to agree to come here for a meal. The antagonist Zhang Sui personally cooked and prepared a sumptuous candlelight dinner. However, after Lingqi arrived here and only ate one dish, the company had something to ask her to come over. Although the antagonist Zhang Sui pleaded in every way, Lingqi still ignored him. At that time, Lingqi didn't even ask for the jacket he had taken off and left in a hurry. In a fit of anger, the antagonist Zhang Sui threw Lingqi's clothes directly into the trash can. But soon, the villain Zhang Sui's licking dog softened again, washed Lingqi's coat by hand, dried it in the sun, and placed it in the wardrobe of the villain Zhang Sui's master bedroom. Zhang Sui sighed inwardly. In my memory, the antagonist Zhang Sui has always lived a luxurious life of dressing up and eating. In order to pursue Lingqi, he actually knows how to cook and wash clothes. This is licking. It's truly earth-shattering. Unfortunately, even if we reach this point, we cannot cover the hard stone of hot Lingqi. As Lingqi was about to enter, Zhang Sui stopped her and said, "Wait outside, I'll go get it for you." Lingqi was slightly taken aback, and his face darkened. Surprisingly, I was not allowed to enter. Although a little angry, Lingqi didn't speak either. If you don't enter, then don't enter. Who cares about entering? Lingqi retreated and lowered his head to play with his phone. Zhang Sui had just turned around to enter the master bedroom when he saw Lu Qiyun's voice coming out of the restroom and saying, "Zhang Sui, who has come? Have you left? Do you have any women's clothes in your house? Find me a few pieces, I'll make do with them and take a shower." Lingqi looked up in shock and looked inside the room. This sound. She won't even forget to death. Zhang Sui's childhood sweetheart, look for Lu Qiyun, who is also a wealthy second generation, at the book garden www.zhaosuiyuan.com. The reason why I have such a clear impression of Lu Qiyun is because when Zhang Sui pursued her, Lu Qiyun had made countless disagreements. During her college years, Lu Qiyun even had someone stop her, calling her a slut and keeping her away from Zhang Sui. Once, it even caused her to be surrounded by several women. Fortunately, Zhang Sui heard the news and rushed to stop it. Lingqi clearly remembers that after this incident, Zhang Sui swore to her in the hospital that he would no longer have any contact with Lu Qiyun. Why is she in the room? Zhang Sui heard Lu Qiyun shout and went into the bedroom. He took out a brand new set of clothes for women from the wardrobe, which had been washed, and said, "Yes, wait a moment. I'll send clothes out to that paralyzed woman and then give them to you." After Zhang Sui finished speaking, there was a hint of conversation. A woman with facial paralysis. I have gone a bit too far. He is still at the door. Thinking that the two have already divorced, I feel relieved again. It's just that. An unintentional loss. If she has a bad feeling towards herself, it doesn't matter. There can be no more entanglement with her in the future. Zhang Sui carried Lingqi's coat out, stuffed it into Lingqi's arms, and then closed the door directly. As the door closed, Lingqi clearly saw a naked woman walking out of the toilet. Is it not Lu Qiyun or who? Lingqi bit her red lips, with a hint of coldness in her beautiful eyes. In the end, she ignored and turned around to leave. What is the relationship with oneself? A playboy who has already divorced, how he likes to fall into corruption is his own business. Chapter 5. Netizens, Fat Girl. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Lingqi only left here, and Zhang Sui turned around to go back to the master bedroom to find clothes for Lu Qiyun. There are various clothes prepared by the villain Zhang Sui for Lingqi in this house. Unfortunately, Lingqi has never lived here before. Of course, those clothes were not used. Zhang Sui was quite emotional. This villain Zhang Sui is truly affectionate. This is the shackles that women cannot escape when writing about male frequency in cities. No matter what kind of man he is, he can't get rid of his licking dog attribute. Just as he turned around, he saw Lu Qiyun standing naked at the door of the toilet, holding the door handle of the glass door with both hands and jokingly looking at him. Who was that just now? Zhang Sui was startled. This Lu Qiyun has really set himself free. Looking at the marks everywhere on Lu Qiyun's body, Zhang Sui said with a hint of unease, "It's Lingqi. She left a coat here before, but now she wants to take it away. She said she's divorced, and she wants to completely sever it." Qiyun saw that Zhang Sui had honestly recruited him, and his eyes were flowing on him, with a hint of shyness on his face. However, she did not avoid it. Instead, she straightened her chest and teased her jet black hair, saying, "How's it going? Is my mother in good shape?" Zhang Sui regained his senses and nodded vigorously, saying, "Indeed." Qiyun joked, "So, which one has a better physique compared to your ex-wife?" Zhang Sui spread out his hand and said, "If I were to say that I haven't even touched her, do you believe it?" Qiyun didn't believe it and doubted, "You've been married for so many years, yet you haven't touched her. You're a person who has put so much effort, time, and money into her, yet you haven't touched her." Zhang Sui said seriously, "There really isn't one. Maybe you don't believe it, you didn't even hold hands." Qiyun rolled his eyes and said, "You deserve it. For the sake of your ex-wife, you broke off all of our friends and even offended your parents, looking like she wouldn't marry you. You've paid so much price that you haven't even touched it. It seems that the old lady used to call you licking the dog lightly. You are a perpetual licking dog." After finishing speaking, he snorted and walked into the bathroom, saying, "Look at a hammer, go find clothes for me." Zhang Sui watched as Qiyun and Shiran entered the restroom, licking the corners of his mouth. This Qiyun has an extraordinary figure. It is absolutely not excessive to say that there is a certain degree of concavity and convexity. Thinking of the antagonist Zhang Sui abandoning his childhood sweetheart and instead licking Lingqi, a cold and aloof woman who had been married for years and couldn't even touch her, Zhang Sui shook his head repeatedly. My friend is indeed a woman's brain. Under normal circumstances, who would do such brainless things for the wealthy second generation? How could you think of giving up a whole forest for a flower? Take out a set of women's clothing from the master bedroom, from underwear to outerwear, and put it outside the toilet. At this moment, the phone vibrated. But V brought news. It's a message from AV.chat called Love Tips Group. A surge of memory surged out. This love trick group was added by the antagonist Zhang Sui in order to find a way to make Lingqi and him meet. His account in this group is a small account that no one else knows. Nickname: The Pain Left in the Heart. Half a month ago, he sent a red envelope of 10,000 yuan in the group for his birthday candlelight dinner, asking everyone to find a way to make it. There are only 800 people in the entire group. He instantly exploded a bunch of people with a red envelope. Everyone gave him various strategies. However, in the end, he only adopted the advice of a person named Fat Girl. Zhang Sui saw the news of V chatting and decided to leave the group. After all, I am no longer the antagonist Zhang Sui and I don't need this group. But it was discovered that after V chatted about the message, a temporary dialog box popped up again. Zhang Sui opened a temporary dialog box. It's a chubby girl. Mengyou said, "How's it going? It's been half a month now. How was the result of last birthday candlelight dinner? Did your wife come? Did you make her submit?" Zhang Sui pondered slightly, withdrew from the group, and closed the dialog box. He has no interest in this matter. What he didn't expect was that VChat popped up a message again. But it was the news of Mengyou's application to add friends, with the accompanying message saying, "Rich man, add a friend." Didn't it succeed? If it didn't succeed, I'll refund you the red envelope. After all, I only got over 2,000. I've taken so much money, but the idea didn't work. I feel guilty. Zhang Sui looked at the pop-up message box and smiled. This chubby girl is quite interesting. Thinking of this, Zhang Sui nodded in agreement and walked back to the master bedroom, saying to Qiyun in the restroom, "I'll wait for you to go out and have dinner together." Qiyun was taking a shower in the bathroom and said, "I can't hear you clearly." "I'm taking a shower, come out and talk." Zhang Sui nodded and went to the master bedroom, sitting by the bedside. Quickly, Mengyou sent a message saying, "Rich man, have you really failed?" Zhang Sui replied, "I failed, and besides, I got divorced. My ex-wife had a heart harder than a stone, so I decided to give up. Mengyou gave a regretful expression and sent another transfer. 2888, Zhang Sui smiled and replied, I won't accept it, right? If you grab it, it's yours. It's not related to your inability to come up with any ideas. Mengyou didn't reply to the news, but instead replied, the rich man is so rich and affectionate. Your ex-wife doesn't know how to cherish her. It's speechless. If I had such a husband, I could die right away. After a while, Mengyou said, the tycoon is from Wucheng, right? I happen to be on a business trip to Wucheng today. Find Qiyun www.zhaoshuyuan.com so that you can come to the airport to pick me up, treat me to a meal, and I will help you solve the problem. Zhang Sui. Mengyou let out a burst of laughter and said, can't you come? If you dare to come, if you're looking at me right, I can take over. Although I'm not as beautiful as you, I'm still cute. Zhang Sui. Thinking of crossing over, there's nothing going on anyway. As for letting oneself work again, that's impossible. Now traveling to the world of books, as a wealthy second generation, I spend over 100,000 yuan on pocket money every month and have just received a breakup fee of 1 billion yuan, which is enough to spend a lifetime. Going to work again would be foolish. Since that's the case, why not go and play around? Zhang Sui replied, what time is the flight? Mengyou said, tonight at 6:30. If you're looking right, I can give you a free cannon. Zhang Sui frowned. Are all the women in the world in this book so bold? This kind of thing is brought up openly and openly. However, anyway, I'm also going to play. The other party is really a dinosaur, so just leave on the spot. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of a woman even though you are a big man? Zhang Sui replied, no problem. Mengyou sent another photo over. She is a woman with a slightly plump figure, but her face is covered by a phone. The other person is currently facing the mirror. Mengyou said, that's all. Remember to come to me then, where's yours? Zhang Sui casually took a selfie and passed it on. The other side responded with a shy expression and said, you're still a bit handsome. Wait for me to go over, handsome tycoon, look at your sister doting on you. Chapter 6. Yifan comes with 7 marriage agreements. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Zhang Sui looked at Mengyou's reply and gave a strange smile. As expected, being a wealthy second generation is satisfying. There are women who are always very attentive. Think about before traveling, not to mention women being so courteous, it's just licking their faces to pursue women, and they will also be despised in various ways. Even finding the most ordinary woman would require 3 major items. A car, a house, and a dowry. Zhang Sui looked up at the ceiling with great emotion. I hope this is not a dream. Otherwise, he would cry to death. After waiting for nearly an hour, Qiyun finished taking a shower and Shiran came out. Her hair has also been blown dry. Seeing Zhang Sui, Qiyun asked, what did you say to me just now? Zhang Sui looked at Qiyun and saw her own masterpiece on her neck. He smiled and said, let's go eat together. Also, I will be responsible for you. Qiyun felt a little pleased in his heart. This 10,000-year-old licking dog has indeed returned to its true nature. However, on the surface, she looked disdainful as she turned around and walked towards the outside, saying, come on, you still want to be responsible. Do you think I'm a woman who lacks men? What are our identities? You know, we're just playing around. As for eating, there's no need. I have something else to do. My dad asked me to go to the company to handle an urgent matter yesterday. If it weren't for you blocking me, I would have left yesterday. You caused me to delay for a day. If my dad scolds me later, you'll be dead. Zhang Sui walked down from the bed and quickly followed, wondering, why are you in this building to handle urgent matters? There is no relevant aspect in memory. Lu Qiyun turned around angrily and gave him a beautiful glare, saying, I also bought a house here, can't I? It's right upstairs from you. After a pause, Lu Qiyun stopped in his tracks and said seriously, don't be too sentimental, thinking that I bought it here because of you. You're an old licking dog, I won't pursue you. Zhang Sui. Sure enough, it's like in a friend's novel. This Lu Qiyun is also licking the antagonist Zhang Sui. However, in his friend's novel, Lu Qiyun, as a villain, did not come to a good end. And now, the two walked into the elevator. Zhang Sui hugged Lu Qiyun's small waist and whispered in her ear, know your kindness to me, and I am willing to marry you. Lu Qiyun allowed Zhang Sui's hand to act recklessly around his waist, but a contemptuous smile appeared on his face and he said, are you willing? I don't want to, okay. You've been licking Lingqi for thousands of years, this is a failure. Come lick me. I don't want it. Zhang Sui thought of Lu Qiyun's madness last night and whispered, yesterday, when I licked it, weren't you quite obsessed? Lu Qiyun blushed and bit her red lips, pretending to fight. The elevator jingled and the door opened. Lu Qiyun broke open Zhang Sui's fingers and hugged her small waist, giving him a fierce glare. He quickly walked out and said, don't follow me, you lifelong licking dog. I want to do something. I don't want anyone to know. You lifelong licking dog is now clinging to me, it's unlucky. Despite saying so, after walking a long distance, Lu Qiyun still smiled and got into the sports car, flying away. The engine emitted a loud roar, as if its owner was in a joyful mood. Zhang Sui watched as Lu Qiyun left, scratched his head, and his face turned slightly red. I am indeed not a serious person. Just now, he said such absurd things to a woman. Think about it, I wasn't a good person either. Before crossing time, the reason why there were no waves was not because of one's nature, but because there was no money. Now with money and status, there are no constraints. Get it? What to do with so much entanglement? Zhang Sui also found his own sports car and drove away. Where are we going? Anyway, you don't have to go to work, just wander around. Where exactly do the waves go? Do you still want to go to the club and experience the luxurious life of wine pool and meat forest? Perhaps experiencing Lu Qiyun's perfect figure, and then thinking about the women in the club, Zhang Sui suddenly felt dull and uninteresting. Forget it, I won't go. If you really want to find another woman, it's better to find Lu Qiyun. Although she has a poisonous mouth, last night's charm between the two and their grasp of the world's plot also indicate that she really likes the antagonist Zhang Sui. I really need it, she won't refuse too much. Zhang Sui suddenly thought of something. In the world of friends, the male Lingqi fan is almost like a bug. According to the plot, he should be working as a security guard in Lingqi's company now. Why don't you take a look? Take a closer look and verify the authenticity of the situation. Although it shouldn't be fake. Thinking of this, Zhang drove his sports car directly to the outside of Lingqi's company. Lingqi's company is located near the square north of Wucheng City. Zhang Sui arrived and parked the sports car in the parking space, walking to a big tree not far from the security booth. There is indeed a young man in the security pavilion. The young man looked like he was in his 20s, his feet resting on the table, trembling. He is still holding a magazine in his hand. In magazines, women with various proud figures are visible to the eye. The young man was wearing a security suit, flipping through a magazine while whistling with a lewd expression on his face. When Zhang Sui stood not far away to look around, a figure walked over. Zhang Sui knows each other. It's Lao Su, the security captain of Lingqi company. Lao Su is extremely familiar with Zhang Sui. Everyone knows that Zhang Sui is the CEO's husband, and he is a licking dog, very clingy. He has come here countless times just to give various gifts to the CEO, but the CEO never pays attention and comes and goes in a hurry. Behind the scenes, countless people have mocked Zhang Sui. However, searching for Qiyun www.zhaoshuyuan.com is all behind the scenes. On the surface, everyone still dares not speak up. After all, everyone knows that Zhang Sui is the young master of the Zhang family in Yanjing. Lao Su walked up to Zhang Sui and said with a smile, "Mr. Zhang, are you looking for the CEO again?" In the past, Zhang Sui came to find Lingqi and often waited near the security pavilion for Lingqi to come out, so he wouldn't go in directly. Zhang Suichong shook his head and said, "No, I just came to take a look." Pointing at the young man at the security booth, Zhang Sui asked knowingly, "When did this young security guard come? What is his name? I haven't seen him before." Lao Su said, "He just came this morning, his name is Yi Fan." It is said that. Lao Su glanced at Zhang Sui with a hint of shyness and dared not say anything more. Zhang Sui asked curiously, "What are you stuttering about?" Lao Su took a deep breath before saying, "Mr. Zhang, I just heard about it. Don't take it seriously." Zhang Sui nodded. Lao Su whispered, "Yesterday he came and stopped the CEO. He took out 7 letters and took out one of them, saying it was a marriage contract signed by his grandfather and the CEO's grandfather. The CEO was very angry at the time and even had someone drive him out. However, today, the CEO had someone call him over again and let him be a security guard here." After Lao Su finished speaking, he glanced at Zhang Sui with some fear. Zhang Sui is not bad towards these lower-class people either. If this kind of thing happens, with his liking for the CEO, he might do something extreme. But my mouth, without speaking, feels very uncomfortable. Speaking up, Lao Su wished he could slap himself. "Make yourself talkative." To Lao Su's surprise, Zhang Sui remained calm and did not react much. Chapter 7. Fat Girl Ji Mengyou is the leader of Blood Moon 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Zhang Sui finally glanced at Yi Fan, who was reading a magazine in the security booth, and turned around to leave. The male lead did indeed appear. And also, it merged with Lingqi, one of the female leads. Although Lingqi initially disliked him, he gradually began to accept him. Get it? The plot is invincible. As a time-traveling villain, stay away from them to avoid being affected. As Zhang Sui turned around and left, a business car slowly drove out of the parking space. In the back seat of the business car, Lingqi stands out. Next to Lingqi sat a woman in her 30s with a capable face. This is Lu Yu, the general manager of Lingqi's company. The two of them are riding in the same car and are preparing to meet a major client. And Lu Yu is reporting all the intelligence of the company's major clients to Lingqi. At this moment, driver Jiang Tingting suddenly said, "President, sir is in front." General Manager Lu Yu immediately stopped speaking. Lingqi frowned slightly, lifted her head, and looked ahead from the information in her hand. In front of the car. Sure enough, I saw Zhang Sui leave alone. Unconsciously, the moment the door was closed and Lu Qiyun was in a daze, Lingqi snorted and said, "Don't care about him. Anyway, I got divorced. What is Li doing?" Not to mention, after being married for so many years, he clearly looked like he only had his own eyes. But as soon as he got divorced, he started fooling around with other women. Or a wealthy second generation like Lu Qiyun. Driver Jiang Tingting heard Lingqi's words and let out a sigh. General Manager Lu Yu hesitated for a moment before speaking up and persuading, "President, you have been married for 5 years. Your coldness may be very discouraging for men. Although Mr. is a bit of a playboy, he has never heard of any scandals with other women. Lingqi has not yet told anyone about the divorce between Lingqi and Zhang Sui. She doesn't want to tell anyone now. The reason is simple. There are too many flies around her. And now, she just wants to focus on her career. Even if she divorced Zhang Sui, it was not publicly disclosed, and people would still think that Zhang Sui was her husband, which could block most men. As for why she didn't continue with Zhang Sui, she was actually very helpless. Zhang Sui has become increasingly clingy recently. What kind of candlelight dinner did he have on his birthday before? At dinner, a major client of the company had an issue and needed her to urgently go back to handle it, so she left. Along the way, Zhang Sui made over 20 phone calls, which really annoyed me. She was so angry that she turned it off directly. However, Zhang Sui did not stop there and instead came directly to the company, furious at the front desk. Lingqi went berserk and filed for divorce. Can you think of earlier years, when Zhang Sui helped her take care of her younger sister, and these years she had been good to herself, she also felt a bit guilty, so she gave a divorce fee of 1 billion yuan. She really can't imagine it. If we continue to entangle, what kind of demon will this Sui become? At this moment, listening to the advice of General Manager Lu Yu, Lingqi remembered all the things Zhang Sui had done in the past and waved his hand with a headache on his face, saying, "Do you have to worry about my personal matters?" General Manager Lu Yu. Facing Lingqi's impatient gaze, Lu Yueqiang smiled and her gaze swept past the car window. She seemed to see Zhang Sui passing by with a desolate expression on her face. She actually knows a lot about Zhang Sui's situation. She is Lingqi's senior sister, who has been working hard with Lingqi and has gone through the process of starting a company and becoming mature now. Because Lingqi had almost no favorable impression of Zhang Sui and often evaded him, sometimes she was also sent by Lingqi to face Zhang Sui. At first, she also thought that men like Zhang Sui were unqualified. But as more and more investigations were conducted, she gradually felt unworthy of Zhang Sui. Zhang Sui, the young master of the Zhang family in Yanjing, is definitely from a wealthy second-generation background. He even gave up his family and friends, and even angered the Zhang family just to be with Lingqi. Lingqi, but he never gave him a good face. Even if the two got married, Lingqi never had any intimate behavior with Zhang Sui. As Lingqi's senior sister, Lu Yu also investigated some information about Lingqi. It is said that Lingqi had a period of white moonlight during high school, but later broke up. Thinking of this, Lu Yu also secretly sighed. This piece of Sui really doesn't hit the south wall and doesn't look back. If I had such a man, I would definitely do my best to love him. I hope he can turn back in time. The CEO is a good boss, a responsible CEO, but not a qualified wife. To be precise, she is an unqualified woman. As Lingqi's business car passed by the security booth, Yi Fan, who was reading a magazine, lifted his head and watched the car pass by, his mouth slightly raised. My fiancée Yi is really a cold CEO. Moreover, she is also beautiful. No wonder that wealthy second-generation would go crazy for her. I hope this wealthy second generation is more witty. Don't force her, she is my Yi Fan's woman. Otherwise, don't blame me, Yi Fan, for being ruthless and ruthless. As for Lingqi now ignoring himself, it doesn't matter. I am full of talent and endless means, and I am not afraid of not being able to convince her. After leaving Lingqi company, Zhang Sui drove to the amusement park and played happily all day. It wasn't until 5:30 p.m. that Zhang Sui drove his sports car to the airport. After all, he made an agreement with that chubby girl in the WeChat group to meet her at the airport before 6:30 p.m. This is still Zhang Sui's first offline meeting with netizens before and after crossing time, as a person of two generations. Moreover, in fact, the two did not have much intersection before. But thinking that there was always nothing to do, it was better to go and have fun, and Zhang was happy again. Arriving at the airport and waiting at the exit for nearly 20 minutes, Zhang Sui, who was leaning against the wall playing with his phone, felt his shoulder being hugged. A cheerful female voice rang in her ear, "Hi, handsome tycoon, how long have you been waiting for your sister?" Zhang Sui lifted his head. Standing beside her was a young woman with long chestnut hair, dressed in a black leather jacket, revealing a smooth abdomen, and wearing sunglasses. Zhang Sui's gaze fell on the other person's navel. On the fair navel, between the obvious waistcoat lines, the navel eye presents a beautiful vertical line. Zhaoshuyuan.com. The young woman saw Zhang Sui staring at her belly button and smiled. She grabbed Zhang Sui's hand and pressed it on it, saying, "What's the pleasure of looking at it? Touch it, how does it feel? Sister, how's your figure? It's very comfortable to hold it in your arms." Zhang Sui's hand flicked on the young woman's navel, looking strange. "Is it true that birds of a feather flock together? Before traveling, I had never encountered any woman who was so open and beautiful. Now, after crossing over and becoming a second-generation wealthy scumbag, 2 open women have appeared around him consecutively." The young woman was hit by Zhang Sui's belly button, but she was not angry. Instead, she had a seductive expression in her eyes and raised her eyebrows, saying, "Let's have a blast tonight. I'll ensure you're satisfied." As she spoke, she reached out her hand and introduced herself, "But you need to get to know me first, right? My beautiful name is Mengyou, and I am 22 years old, a freelancer." Zhang Sui smiled and instinctively reached out to grab the other person's small hand. The next moment, his heart skipped a beat. Mengyou. This is a post-game boss from a friend's novel. He is the second-class leader of a very powerful organization in this world. This organization seems to be called Blood Moon. An organization engaged in the sale of human organs and illegal drug production. Members are spread across various fields. There are even people in the top scientific research organizations in various countries. In the early stages of this season, Mengyou's strength is only stronger than that of the male Lingqi fan. However, in a friend's novel, this season Mengyou was impressed by the male Lingqi fan after several battles with him. In the end, when the male lead fought against the big boss of the organization, he willingly died for the male Lingqi fan, allowing him to eliminate the biggest boss of the organization. Chapter 8. Encountering Lingqi again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Mengyou saw Zhang Sui reaching out his hand, but did not grip it. She smiled and took the initiative to grip Zhang Sui's hand, even scratching it in his palm and saying, "What's wrong, is this? Are you fooled by beautiful women?" Zhang Sui finally regained consciousness and looked at Mengyou again. Memory goes beyond just those moments. In the novel, Mengyou's real name is not Mengyou, but is called Number 1. This is also her code name in Blood Moon. The most crucial thing is that Mengyou's true age this season is far from what she appears to be now. The real Mengyou is actually in her 40s. However, because it is well maintained, it looks like a little girl in her 20s. Moreover, she practiced a very magical ancient martial arts called bone shrinking technique. The so-called bone reduction technique, as the name suggests, is to change the bones and thus alter the face. Because of this, she often appears in the public eye with various appearances and identities, and international police have arrested her countless times, all of which have failed. Of course, none of these were actually the ones that scared Zhang Sui the most. What really scared Zhang Sui was that the female demon head killed without blinking an eye. There are even many masters of the male lead in novels who died under his command. Moreover, the male lead is unable to capture her. If it weren't for Zhang Sui's friend, the author, forcing her to change her mind and being inexplicably convinced by the male protagonist Yi Fan in repeated battles, the male protagonist wouldn't have been able to kill her, let alone the ultimate boss of Blood Moon. However, Zhang Sui quickly regained his senses. Now Mengyou is right in front of me, even if I am worried, what will happen? With the abilities in the novel, Mengyou pinched herself to death this season, like pinching an ant. And, what's the point of her killing herself? Firstly, although the Zhang family behind me is good, they have not been squeezed into a super first-class family in Yanjing. Secondly, I am still a playboy who has long been abandoned by the Zhang family. Although the Zhang family still gives tens of thousands of pocket money every month, they no longer have a place to stand. So far, I have nothing special about myself. Zhang Sui couldn't imagine the reason why Mengyou was dealing with him. Upon realizing this, Zhang Sui grabbed the hand that Mengyou was scratching in his palm, kissed it on his lips, and smiled. "You're right, it's because you're such a beautiful woman." Mengyou goose laughed a few times before pulling Zhang Sui along and saying, "Let's go play. When I came today, I had already prepared a travel guide. Go roller coaster first, then go eat hot pot." Zhang Suidao said, "Then you come with me." I drove over. Mengyou continued to hold on to him and walked away, saying, "I also had someone prepare a car." The two of them walked out of the exit and didn't wait long before they saw a motorcycle rushing towards them and finally stopping in front of them. On the motorcycle, a young woman walked down. Mengyou didn't even say hello to her, just sat up and patted her back, saying, "Sit up." Zhang Sui nodded and sat down directly. Or perhaps after being washed by Lu Qiyun and the 20 beauties in the club yesterday, he is now very open. As he sat behind Mengyou, he wrapped his hands around her waist. Mengyou immediately pressed the accelerator hard. The motorcycle engine let out a piercing roar and flew out with Mengyou and Zhang Sui. Zhang Sui felt that his ears were completely covered by the strong wind, and he even couldn't breathe. He's grown so big, it's the first time he's been so crazy. Zhang Sui couldn't help but hug Mengyou's waist tighter. However, he did not shout loudly about it. Mengyou looked at Zhang Sui in the rearview mirror. Seeing Zhang Sui hiding his head behind him, he burst out laughing again. The two of them rode for nearly half an hour before finally stopping at the entrance of the Wuqing amusement park. When Zhang Sui got off the motorcycle, he felt his legs and feet unstable and stumbled a few steps. Mengyou looked at Zhang Sui with a mocking expression on his face and said, "You tycoon, how could you be so miserable? How come you haven't played such an exciting game before? So every time you buy a gift for your wife, you can't move tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands." Zhang Sui held onto the wall with his right hand and stood firmly before saying, "I'm not a tycoon, I'm a second-generation wealthy man. Besides, I used to be a good citizen. How could a girl like you play with ghosts and fire so extravagantly?" Mengyou propped her elbows on the motorcycle and continued jokingly, "I've heard your name, Zhang Sui, a perpetual licking dog. Before licking your ex-wife, you weren't a quiet person either." Zhang Sui rolled his eyes and ignored her. Instead, he said, "Wait, I'll go buy the ticket." After speaking, "Walk away straight away." Meng looked at Zhang Sui quietly. Suddenly, her phone in her pocket rang. Mengyou took out her phone. I saw on the phone screen. Number 1, Target Amusement Park, Expert, Ma Jun. Also included is a photo. In the photo, a middle-aged man has a smile on his face. Mengyou took out her phone card directly and threw it directly towards a small car that was coming. The phone was crushed directly by the car. Mengyou didn't even look, got off the motorcycle, walked towards the crowd, silently broke her phone card, and threw it into the pocket of a young man at Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. After finishing all of this, Mengyou whistled and looked around. Actually, she is searching for scenes in the photos. As she searched diligently, something touched her pretty face. Mengyou instinctively reached out her hand and pinched the other person. Her slender fingers directly grabbed Zhang Sui's neck. Zhang Sui held a bottle of frozen mineral water and 2 tickets in his left hand, and a hot drink in his right hand, which was pasted on Mengyou's face. Seeing that it was Zhang Sui, Ji Mengyou's hand that grabbed Zhang Sui's neck suddenly turned into a sketched shape. She hugged Zhang Sui's neck, pulled his head over, and kissed him on the face. Then, with a smile, she took the hot drink from Zhang Sui's right hand and said with a smile, "Handsome tycoons are so gentle and considerate. Your ex-wife actually doesn't cherish you so much. How about that? Follow me, sister, I promise to feed you every day." Zhang Suiqiang smiled and quickly said, "Goodbye, we're just netizens. Girls, we still need to be more reserved." Ji Mengyou raised her eyebrows and said, "If you follow me, I will remain reserved and only indulge you in bed." The crowd around looked strangely at Ji Mengyou and Zhang Sui. Some women looked at Ji Mengyou in disgust, even covering the ears of the boys around them with both hands. Ji Mengyou was completely indifferent. At this moment, a speaker spoke up and said, "Zhang Sui, why are you here?" Zhang Sui and Ji Mengyou turned their heads together, looking in the direction of the sound. But several people walked over. Two of them are Lingqi and General Manager Lu Yu. At this moment, Lingqi looked at Zhang Sui, with a hint of anger circulating in her beautiful eyes. And the sound just now was made by Lu Yu. Chapter 9. I divorced her. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Ji Mengyou's gaze swept over the middle-aged man and he hugged Zhang Sui's arm. He smiled and whispered in his ear, "Which one is your ex-wife? Let me guess." Zhang Sui interrupted her directly and turned around expressionlessly, saying, "Bored." Lingqi watched Zhang Sui leave without even a glance, and his heart trembled slightly with displeasure. She felt a slight sourness in her eyes. However, she quickly regained consciousness and said to the middle-aged man, "Mr. Ma, let's continue." The middle-aged man is none other than the middle-aged man named Ma Jun who appeared on Ji Mengyou's phone screen before. Ma Jun smiled at Lingqi and said to a 12-year-old boy beside him, "Son, let's continue." The boy let out a sigh. Lingqi followed. However, Lu Yu did not follow up, but chased after Zhang Sui, pulling his sleeve and suppressing her anger, saying, "Zhang Sui, you have gone too far. Where did you go before? How dare you do such a thing today? Are you flirting with other women in front of your wife?" Lingqi's face changed slightly. Forcefully squeezing the acid in his eyes back, Lingqi quickly stepped forward to stop Lu Yu. But seeing Zhang Sui showing impatience, he shook off Lu Yu's hand that grabbed his sleeve and looked at Lingqi angrily. "She and I have already divorced. Are we divorced? Do you understand? Not even her ex-wife is qualified to care about me. Who are you? Manage the East and the West." Lu Yu stood straight in place. It wasn't until Zhang Sui walked away that she regained her senses and looked at Lingqi behind her with an incredulous expression, saying, "CEO, are you divorced?" Lingqi's face turned slightly pale. From Zhang Sui, she really couldn't find any love he had for her back then. Back then, he was so crazy. It is impossible to say that there is no sourness in the heart due to this huge gap. However, Lingqi squeezed out a smile and said to Lu Yu, "Yes, he's divorced. What he's doing now has nothing to do with me." Ma Jun was puzzled and said, "Lingqi, as an outstanding and beautiful woman like you, how could a man choose to give up on you after getting you?" Lingqi smiled apologetically and did not answer. Instead, he said to Ma Jun, "Mr. Ma, let's continue." Speaking quickly, he walked towards the door and queued up to buy tickets. Lu Yu looked at Lingqi's back and then towards the direction where Zhang Sui had left, frowning slightly. However, for some reason, her heart was actually not as sad anymore. Even a hint of joy. The thought startled Lu Yu. How could I secretly rejoice? Shaking her head, Lu Yu cleared her mind of various complex and chaotic thoughts. She smiled at Ma Jun and the young man and said, Mr. Ma, the roller coaster here is the most exciting in our foggy city. Lingqi lined up and bought tickets, then led Ma Jun, Lu Yu, and others into the amusement park. What they didn't expect again was that they saw Zhang Sui again. At this moment, Zhang Suijing and Ji Mengyou were sitting together, fastening their seat belts. Ji Mengyou was dancing with excitement as she described something to Zhang Sui. Lingqi's gaze once again fell on Zhang Sui and Ji Mengyou. Her heart once again felt a hint of sourness, even staring blankly at the two of them. In her memory, she never had an experience of traveling with Zhang Sui. Even without a single experience of smiling at Zhang Sui. At this moment, watching Ji Mengyou's face dance and dance, Lingqi felt a hint of guilt in her heart. Did I really go too far back then? Zhang Sui is riding a roller coaster with Ji Mengyou and others. Seeing Lingqi staring blankly at him, Zhang Suiren was stunned. He has no feelings for Lingqi. Although the other party is very beautiful. After all, he is not the villain Zhang Sui in the novel, Friend, but a traveler. However, at this moment, as Lingqi looked at him like a resentful woman, Zhang Sui's hair stood on end. He won't forget that Lingqi is one of the 7 female leads in his friend's novel. But the woman of the male Lingqi fan. Although in his friend's novel, the male Lingqi fan repeatedly emphasizes that he will not force the 7 female leads to complete their engagement with him, and also says that he has seen too many women, which is not uncommon. In fact, any man who gets involved with any of the 7 female leads will be ruined by the male Lingqi fan. Zhang Sui doesn't want his family to be ruined. Now I have finally made it through time to become a wealthy second generation, with a monthly allowance of tens of thousands and a breakup fee of 1 billion. What kind of immortal days are you living here? He won't take it too hard and ruin his future. He doesn't want to offend the male Lingqi fan. I don't want to have any involvement with any of the 7 female leads, in order to avoid causing misunderstandings with the male Lingqi fan. Thinking of this, Zhang then looked fiercely at Lingqi and said, "Where are you looking at the mud horse? Divorce was also brought up by you. Now who should I show pity to? If you look again, I will dig out your eyeballs and feed the dog." Lingqi regained her senses, her eyes filled with a layer of mist. Previously, he could not have said such harsh words to himself. No, he wouldn't do anything that would be detrimental to himself. And now, he's doing it all. However, Lingqi inexplicably couldn't breathe a single breath in his heart. However, she did not look at Zhang Sui again, nor did she look back on the past. Zhaosuiyuan.com turning around and sitting next to Lu Yu, Lingqi's voice trembled uncontrollably as she said, "We're both divorced, and we're okay. No one's wrong. Don't look anymore." Lu Yu saw a hint of tears in Lingqi's beautiful eyes and sighed lightly. The faint hint of joy that had just emerged was completely gone. She originally wanted to comfort Lingqi. But when the words reached her mouth, she swallowed them back. Get it? She should never meet a good husband like Zhang Sui again. But who can be blamed? She devoted herself wholeheartedly to her career and had never even given Zhang Sui any time before. It's normal for a good man like Zhang Sui to be unable to bear it. He can still persist for 5 years, which is already very rare. Zhang Sui breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Lingqi no longer looking at him. If Lingqi looked at it again, he would really explode. The life he has traveled through these past 2 days has made him deeply understand that he now possesses the capital of waves and must not be hanged by a woman. Abandoning an entire forest for the sake of a single flower is an act of mental illness. Beside Zhang Sui, Ji Mengyou also stopped frolicking and quietly looked at Zhang Sui. She had investigated Zhang Sui before coming. Of course, it's not about having any connection with Zhang Sui, it's purely an occupational disease. The man in front of me, who looks very thin and cold, is so affectionate. Just being born in the wrong era, deep affection has become synonymous with licking the dog. Now, he probably has been heartbroken. Thinking of this, Mengyou gently grasped Zhang Sui's hand and smiled, saying, "If life deceives you, don't be sad, don't be impatient, all your sorrows will pass. Look now, isn't there a beautiful woman like me by your side?" Chapter 10. The First Experience of Assassination. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Zhang Sui glanced inexplicably at Mengyou beside him. What kind of nonsense is she talking about? What if life deceives you? What did you deceive? However, he was too lazy to refute. Whatever she says. I came this time just to ride the roller coaster with her, and also to play for myself. Soon, the roller coaster started moving. This is Zhang Sui's first time riding a roller coaster. Before traveling, although there was enough money to play, there was no one to accompany. This time, experiencing the excitement of the roller coaster, Zhang Sui and Mengyou both screamed. Lingqi and Liu Yu sat in front of Zhang Sui and Mengyou. Listening to Zhang Sui and Mengyou screaming together, Lingqi remained silent throughout the entire process. After riding a roller coaster, Lingqi vomited a mess. However, Zhang Sui, who also got off the car, did not even stop for her for a second. He was pulled away by Mengyou. Liu Yu took care of Lingqi, who couldn't vomit properly, while looking at Zhang Sui and leaving. Even the horse on one side couldn't help roast. That man is your ex-husband of Ms. Lingqi. It's too cruel. You vomit like this, and he didn't even stop looking. Lingqi took the tissue from Liu Yu's hand, and a pale face forced out a smile as he said, "Stop talking about him, Mr. Ma. What else are we going to play with?" Ma Jun looked at the young man beside him who was also stumbling and said, "Let's take a break nearby first." Liu Yu quickly beckoned Ma Jun and the young man to sit aside. Ma Jun looked at Lingqi, who was still feeling dizzy, and said, "Ms. Lingqi, please come and rest for a while. You have been working hard today, and I am willing to cooperate with your company on this project." Lingqi just smiled at Liu Yu. Not far away, Mengyou pulled Zhang Sui onto a bench and pinched his face, saying, "Wait for me here, I'll go to the bathroom. Remember not to wander around, otherwise I won't be able to find you later." After speaking, without waiting for Zhang Sui to agree, he ran away quickly. Zhang Sui looked at the direction of Mengyou's run, which was not the location of the toilet, and wanted to remind him. Suddenly, he thought of Mengyou's identity and frowned slightly. It's fake that she went to the bathroom. Is it true that she's planning to secretly kill someone? According to the plot in my friend's novel, Mengyou often completes assassination missions during this season. Moreover, she is highly skilled and the second leader of the international criminal organization Blood Month. I don't know which unlucky guy will fall under her hands this time. Although he intended to stop it, Zhang Sui still suppressed it. This world, her persona is like this. If you try to stop it yourself, not only will you not be able to please her, but you may also offend her, leading to a fatal accident. Why bother? Whoever she goes to assassinate, as long as it doesn't involve herself, don't worry. Not long after Mengyou left, a dull gunshot suddenly rang out from the amusement park. A few piercing screams suddenly rang out not far from Zhang Sui. It was Lingqi and Liu Yu, as well as a young man. Beside them, the horse sitting on the bench collapsed straight to the ground. His chest suddenly had a bloody opening. At this moment, the cave entrance is constantly spraying fresh blood outwards. The surroundings were already very noisy. At this moment, the crowd was frantically fleeing in all directions. Lingqi and Liu Yu held their heads in both hands and looked at Ma Jun's body in terror. Zhang Sui suddenly understood. It must be Mengyou doing it. Zhang Sui was quite speechless. Or perhaps knowing that Mengyou's goal was not himself, Zhang Sui did not feel much panic. Even, he had an impulse to turn around and leave immediately. However, before he could leave, he saw someone rushing towards Lingqi and Liu in the frenzied crowd. Among them, Lingqi was knocked down by an old lady, and her thick heel directly stepped on Lingqi's head before running away. There were also people rushing towards Lingqi and Liu. At this moment, the two women looked like fools, only holding their heads and screaming, and neither of them would run away. Zhang Sui was completely speechless. This world is truly written by my female friend. Women only scream when they encounter things. Zhang Sui rolled his eyes, but couldn't hold back. He rushed over and pulled Lingqi, Liu, and the young man to the side of the wooden stool near the flower bed. He blocked them with his body while looking fiercely at the crowd approaching him. The crowd saw the situation and turned around one after another. Quickly, the police station rushed over and took control of the scene. Mengyou didn't know when she came back. Zhang Suiquan doesn't know what she did. The police brought Zhang Sui, Mengyou, Lingqi, Liu, and the young man to the police station for questioning. Lingqi, Liu, and the young man are still in a state of panic and cannot inquire at all. Mengyou, on the other hand, used the excuse of going to the restroom to avoid seeing the crime scene and evaded it. Only Zhang Sui was conscious and articulate clearly. However, Zhang Sui did not reveal Mengyou's identity, nor did he reveal the truth about Ma Jun's assassination. He only briefly described what he had seen and heard. Afterwards, the police released a few people. Mengyou just bid farewell to Zhang Sui. Zhang Sui did not persuade him to stay. He wished Mengyou could get away quickly, it's better to be far away from him. After all, he knows the true identity of Mengyou this season. Being with such a ruthless demon, to be honest, even if he knew the target was not himself, he still felt a bit guilty. Or, in other words, as long as she is still by her side, she has to constantly experience what happened today. Watching Mengyou leave, Zhang Sui also prepared to leave. Zhaozuiyuan.com. A voice suddenly sounded and said, Zhang Sui, I want to take young Master Ma back to comfort you. Why don't you take the CEO back first? After I finish my work, I'll go pick her up. I'm leaving her alone in this state, and I feel a bit uneasy. Zhang Sui looked towards the direction of the sound. It's Liu, the general manager of Lingqi Company, and also Lingqi and his senior sister, who have had many interactions. At this moment, Liu had already come to her senses from her panic. Zhang Sui refused directly and had to continue leaving. But Liu said hysterically, are you still not human? Even if you are a stranger, the CEO looks like this now, will you take care of him? You are still husband and wife. Zhang Sui rolled his eyes and ignored it. Do you engage in moral kidnapping for me? Strangers who care about you. And I also want to live. Lingqi is one of the 7 female leads. I think my life is too long and I have to entangle with her again. Liu was so angry that she stomped her feet when she saw Zhang Sui leave without paying attention. It wasn't until Zhang Sui took a taxi and left the line of sight that Lingqi regained consciousness. Looking at Liu, Lingqi said in a hoarse voice, take young Master Ma back first. You don't have to worry about me here. I'm fine now. Liu worried and said, are you really okay? Lingqi nodded slowly. Liu glanced suspiciously at Lingqi before leaving with the young man. Lingqi stared blankly towards the direction where Liu had disappeared, and a scene came to mind of Zhang Sui pulling himself and the 3 of them to the bench near the flower bed, using his body to protect them. She bit her red lips tightly. For the first time, she felt that she was too fragile. And sometimes, it's not something that can be overcome through hard work.